Product of a political dynasty, son of the country's second prime minister, nephew of its third, a leader whose party has been in power since independence from Britain in 1957.
I don't give up easily. I have a lot of determination. I believe in what I'm doing.
Najib Razak is a political survivor, having weathered accusations that hundreds of millions of dollars found their way into his bank account via a state fund called 1MDB.
There's no wrongdoing. The Saudi government has come out with a statement admitting that it is an official donation.
Now he's facing another test. An election against his former mentor, Mahathir Mohamad, who's now 92, was prime minister for 22 years.
When I stepped down, and they called me a dictator, which dictator ever stepped down? And secondly, when I step down, people don't curse me. I can walk around the streets and people come up to me and shake my hand.
In this exclusive interview, Najib Razak talks openly about his achievements, his regrets, his opponent, and the fallout from 1MDB. There's no doubting his political pedigree. A member of parliament at 23, Malaysia's youngest ever deputy minister at 25, 40 years in the business. Yet, to many, Najib Razak remains an enigma. His 9 years in power marked as much by controversy as limited economic success. Bloomberg has secured the first international interview with Malaysia's Prime Minister in more than 3 years, ahead of an election that's shaping up to be his greatest political challenge.
Moving around, I feel that most people, they want more predictability, more certainty, and they want a government that's able to deliver. And the fact that over the last 5 years, we have delivered. And they know that we can deliver the next 5 years. I think that's key to the sense of confidence. There is no movement for changing the government. I don't see that. That's not saying that we will win with a huge majority. No, I'm not going to predict that. But I'm going to say that we are reasonably sanguine about the result. But I keep telling myself and my colleagues as well, you've got to work hard.
Are you willing to put a figure on how many seats you think you can win this time? Do you think it will be more than 2013? And is the 2/3 majority possibly achievable?
I hate to set target, for several reasons. But I think generally speaking, I am expecting a better result than 2013. One of the reasons is that the opposition is a motley collection of parties, and they don't have much in common, and they were very derisive in their comments of one another for decades. I don't see how they can really work together.
UMNO did lose the popular vote in 2013. Looking back, why do you think that happened? And what are you doing this time to ensure there's no repeat?
The call for a change, which basically the urban and primarily the Malaysian Chinese believe a change was possible. And now today they know it's not possible. So I think that euphoria has receded to a great extent. So there's several factors, I think, and the confidence level in that kind of coalition between enemies over decades is something that it's a hard sell actually, and of course, a 93-year-old man trying to lead this coalition, it's a hard sell as well.
Mahathir was actually the man who helped bring you to power in 2009, and now here you are heading against each other in the election. What happened? What went so wrong with what was obviously a friendship and a peer and a patron relationship?
I think I have studied the man. I think he is obsessed about control, about calling the shots. In fact, when we were quite close together, he even suggested establishing a council of elders. And of course, you can imagine who's going to chair the council of elders. And you know, as sitting prime minister, after every cabinet, I suppose I would have to march to his office to get his consent. I mean, that's not the way, you know, you run a government. I mean, for example, I mean, there is this gentleman's rule, so to speak. I mean, you don't get David Cameron or you know, previous prime ministers in UK, you know, telling Theresa May what to do, and similarly, ex-presidents don't tell current presidents what to do. There is that you belong to a special club, if you like, and there is that kind of mutual respect, understanding, and I adhere to that. One day, when I'm no longer in office, I would not want to, you know, to impose on my successor. But he is obsessed about control, and the key was that he wanted me to do his bidding. For example, he wanted so much the Crooked Bridge to be carried out, and he was upset with Tun Abdullah Badawi when he was Prime Minister because he cancelled the Crooked Bridge, and because Tun Abdullah Badawi brought in quite a number of young technocrats, and that was signal that he was not going to listen to Dr. Mahathir. So in my case, it was when I did not continue with his request or his obsession to have a Crooked Bridge to be implemented, and when his son, Mukhris, lost the vice president, UMNO vice presidency. I didn't say no to him, but I said I thought it was too early for him to become vice president. Not being a Supreme Council member, he'd have to prove his worth first before becoming vice president of UMNO. But that was a turning point, and after that, he declared an open war against me.
Do you see yourself as a survivor? The last few years there have been some difficult times for you in different ways. Do you think that your opponents have underestimated you? Is that how you would describe yourself?
Maybe, I don't know. You have to ask them. I've always been someone that's close to the people and also to the party members. I believe in developing a personal relationship within the party. So even during difficult times, the party stood by me. They couldn't shake me. The support base is strong. And UMNO is even more united today than ever before. And that's why, we have that sense of that we're moving forward politically, economically, and socially.
One of the cornerstones of Najib Razak's time in power is the economy, which is enjoying its strongest pace in 3 years. GDP growth last year was almost 6%, among the strongest in Asia. But that followed a string of difficulties on his watch as oil prices fell and sentiment was hit by the scandal surrounding 1MDB.
The Malaysian economy is making very steady progress. Since we launched our transformation plan in 2010, we've made tremendous strides in many areas. For example, if you take into account the growth rate from 2010 to 2017, we achieved 5.4% average, and that's double the growth rate for the world, global growth rate. If you talk in terms of job creation, we created 2.7 million jobs. In terms of GNI increase, we have achieved more than 50% increase in GNI. In terms of capital market, for example, last year, the capital market grew by 12.6% to reach 3.2 trillion ringgit. So those numbers, those figures are indeed indicative of the success of our transformation plan.
Going forward, what are your targets to get to the balanced budget?
Originally, we were targeting 2020 to achieve balanced budget. But we could achieve that if not for the crash in oil prices. But I think if you talk realistically, I don't think we can achieve a balanced budget, but near enough by 2020. And I think by maybe 2022 or 2023, that's probably a more realistic target for us to achieve balanced budget.
Is there a specific achievement that you're particularly proud of?
I think in the all-encompassing way that we are moving in a very positive terms to become a high-income, fully developed nation. I'm also proud of the fact that we have diversified the economy. When I came in, we were over-dependent on oil and gas revenue to the point of 41%. Today, it's roughly in the region about 14%. And so that's a tremendous turnaround. We have been able to take brave, sometimes maybe not all that popular decision, but they are the right decision.
One of his party's biggest challenges is allaying concerns of the rising cost of living in the rural heartland. A 6% GST was introduced 3 years ago, which the opposition has vowed to remove if it wins power.
For a country to succeed, we've got to have a long-term focus. You cannot be populist in nature. This GST was something that was in the offing for 20 years. My predecessor didn't have the political courage to introduce it. We were at the cusp of introducing it, but it was withdrawn twice at the last moment. But I decided that it's the right decision, and I was willing to take that risk. But I know over time we will be proven right.
Talking about post-elections, what can investors expect in terms of the biggest economic reforms from you after the elections?
I think we will, continue to make Malaysia a globally competitive nation. That's one. In other words, we will be improving our infrastructure, our connectivity, our participation in terms of global trading arrangements, making Malaysia more attractive for foreign investment, making Malaysia as a hub for the region, developing a digital economy, to achieve a much higher percentage of our GDP, the cost of broadband and the speed of broadband to improve much faster. All those things, and of course human capital to train our labor force to become much more in line with Industrial Revolution 4.0.
What went wrong with 1MDB? Did it stray from its original vision that you had when it was set up?
It started from, the business model actually itself was not that sustainable. But it became an issue for what is essentially a business issue became a political issue because my opponents wanted to use 1MDB to change a democratically elected government between election cycles. That's why they created this as a big issue. For example, quite a few years ago when the issue erupted, Dr. Mahathir himself made a statement that 42 billion disappeared into thin air, when in fact it was 42 billion dead. But it was not money missing, you see. But when the issue erupted, came to the fore, as Prime Minister, I was the one who directed a full investigation of 1MDB. But there were issues of governance which required more investigation. And I think I'm on record to say if there's any wrongdoing, the law will take its course and will be enforced. So that's my position on it. And meanwhile, our rationalization program is working well. Our debt level has gone down to about 30 billion from 42 billion. and we've got enough assets to cover our debts.
What do you say to those who say that you've acted dishonestly about the funds? You know, you've been called all sorts of things, including a thief. What's your response to that?
There's no evidence of that. I mean, you cannot just, accuse somebody of being a thief or anything unless there's evidence. So that is a politically motivated statement.
Yes. But you have admitted that the funds did end up in your accounts, even though it was a donation from the Saudi government.
Yeah, it's been cleared. There's been no wrongdoing. So I stand by it. There's no wrongdoing. The Saudi government has come out with a statement admitting that it is an official donation. So, the facts speak for themselves, but it's been turned to become a political issue.
How has the 1MDB issue damaged the government, yourself, Malaysia?
There was some reputational damage, I have to admit that. But I think when the international rating agencies and all the international bodies look at, like IMF, World Bank, and they came here, Fitch, Moody's. They even went to 1MDB's office, to look at the files, the figures. And I think they've come to the conclusion that 1MDB will not impact Malaysia economically.
Do you regret what happened? And looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Yes, I would have done. I would have probably not have that kind of business model. Probably I will make sure tighter supervision. But we all learn from our mistakes, and that should not detract from on the huge number of successes that we have in other areas.
There's been a clear shift in Malaysia, not so much away from traditional investors as to more towards China. And that hasn't always sat well with the Malay majority. Najib Razak's government maintains strong relations with the US, but China's influence is growing.
Well, I have a good, warm, personal relationship with President Donald Trump. As you know, I knew him before he became famous. He was famous then, but he is more famous today. So I think the two important things that matter to him would be, how to make United States great and create more jobs. That's one. Number two, how to make United States safe. I think those are the two things very much uppermost in his mind.
Do you talk with him about his view on the US role in Asia? Is that something that you're still concerned about? And do you feel that gives an opportunity to China to escalate its rise in the region?
We believe in good relations with the major global powers, China and the United States. I think both countries have a role to play in Asia. We had wanted the United States to be part of TPP because TPP was a very important economic influence of the United States in this region, but unfortunately they withdrew. But at the same time, we also believe that the Belt and Road Initiative initiated by President Xi is a very good platform for rapid economic development.
You mentioned Belt and Road, and obviously that's the prospect of enormous amounts of money coming into key projects and infrastructure in many countries globally. For Malaysia, though, do you worry that that could come with strings attached at some point?
Of course, it will increase China's influence in the region, but we also have our own position and to deal with certain issues revolving South China Sea, for example. I think for as long as ASEAN remains united, and the fact that China is more obsessed about becoming the #1 economy in the world, I don't think China will risk in any irresponsible action that will undermine its rise to become the largest economy in the world.
Within Malaysia, how do you ensure on those projects, for example, that Malaysians also have opportunities when it comes to the work or the projects, and that they don't get squeezed out by Chinese companies and Chinese labour?
We have ensured that's part of the contract. For example, a lot of the infrastructure work will be done by Malaysian companies, and they are to employ Malaysian people to work on their project. For example, the East Coast Rail link, we have put certain preconditions as part of the contract. So I'm mindful of the fact that it should not be seen as a Chinese project in its entirety, but Malaysians must feel that they benefit from the project.
I wanted to ask you one final question about China, and it's about the phrase China's rise, which seems to get used a lot. China's rise, and sometimes with slightly ominous overtones of evil China rising. What's your view of China's rise, and what kind of power do you think it wants to be?
I think that the rise of China is inevitable. I mean, whatever you say, you can't stop it. It's inevitable. And we always like to see China as a force of good, for the region, in a sense that, a big economy in China is also good for us. For example, China is our largest trading partner, and China buys palm oil from Malaysia. It's good for our smallholders. China buys even our durians. It's good for our smallholders too. So it's a big market. I think China will continue to be a responsible nation. And I know it's a cliche to talk peaceful rise, but we believe there are no reasons for us to doubt that will happen.
So there you have it, a country of 32 million people on the verge of its most crucial election in decades. I'm Haslinda Amin in Putrajaya. Thanks for watching.